Welcome to Philippine Forex. Sorry guys, we're a little bit late on this stuff. We're building the house, so I will be putting the ticker down below there for this weekend's Forex, and Lynn has run the numbers for our house ending week 2. Lynn has run the numbers for our house. Let's get into that because this is all part of what Forex Friday, Forex Philippines is all about, and that's about budgeting. So one thing I'll note up front here, on our personal budget for the month, we haven't even come close because I've included the hotel costs as part of our build, and I wanted to just set that straight, as well as the gas for the car. That's part of the build because 99% of what we're doing is because of the build. Yeah. So just bear that in mind when you're hearing these totals. Now the hotel's cheap, $7,000 for a week.
Yeah.
So that's cheap. Anyway, so how are we doing on the numbers there, Lynn? Because we had a week 0, day 0, which was really just to get our what do you call it? Electrical
yeah.
started and everything.
Yeah, the electrical. Well,
Okay.
First on the week 0, day 0, we had only electrical connection, which is 10,500. That's our choice to have 3 poles. So
right, yeah,
it's
we
only
decided
for the
not to go underground, guys.
Yeah.
Just because of how hard the digging has been. And the other thing that we ran into is that the pillars of the fence that belong to the neighbor, the pillars themselves, they're damn near right at the surface. So every time we would run down the property, we'd have to be, out about
a
foot or so,
yeah.
maybe a little more, or a third of a meter.
Yeah.
So, okay, so let's get back to it here. Week 1, what was grand total there?
Yeah, okay, the grand total for week 1 is 122,000. That consists of another electrical, the wirings, which costed us like 10,333, and then there's other utilities which cost us 10,000 pesos as well, plus the wages, which cost us 12,150.
Okay, so to recap that, guys, the 122,000 we spent that week amounted to 2,500 US and 3,000 Canadian.
300 Canadian.
No. The 122,000 amounted to 3,000.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
As a total. But as far as wages goes, the 12,000 that we spent for 8 guys amounted to $245 US or 300 Canadian.
Right.
So the wages are not big here, guys. Now maybe you understand why I don't mind having the crew a little bit bigger, and why we're spending time taking the black soil off the anapogue and moving it around.
Yeah.
Labor is cheap here, guys. And even that little video that I did yesterday that included Asingwa and how they bring in gravel and they spend lots of time with their labor sifting it to make sand that they can charge a lot of money for, which we'd rather just sift on site. It's cheaper.
Yeah.
But Lynn, that week 1, day 1, or that week 1, the total electrical connection, including all of the administration fees, because all of this stuff is offloaded onto the builder rate, guys. Right. So that includes, you have to pay for the engineer of the department, you have to pay for the person who's going to sign the paper.
Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah.
In Western countries, we might consider these bribes, but this is not how it is. What they do is that they offload these costs to the consumer. So think of it more like a toll bridge. If you don't have to go across the toll bridge, you don't pay for it. But if you have to go across it, user pay.
Right.
Okay? So just think of it in those terms. So let's get on to week 2 here.
Okay. Week 2, we have the total cost of 214,000 pesos. but that's not really, it's not really the, total cost, because that week 2, that prolongs our cost because it is in preparation for the building of the house.
Right.
That's total cost. And then, although the majority cost here was like the rebars, which we use 12 mm and 10 mm, and then it cost us almost 60,000 pesos.
Yeah.
Still, it's our choice that we want it to be compact, so the flooring is, strong and the foundation is strong. It's our choice.
Yeah.
The sand and gravel cost us like roughly 23,000 pesos. Sorry.
Yeah.
And then we have the cocoa lumber for the to what was that?
All of
The
framing.
the framing,
and
yeah.
Holding up the pillars.
Which
Yeah.
cost us 22,000 pesos.
Yeah, now just on that cocoa lumber alone, guys, that'll all be given away at the end of the day, probably.
Yeah.
Depending on what little projects Lynn has. There's a lot of cocoa lumber there.
Maybe I can use it as a trellis for my
A
melon.
romantic area, maybe? But to add to this, guys, we also bought the high quality marine plywood.
Yes.
It has a black finish on it.
Yeah.
It doesn't stick to the concrete, so it makes it easier to pop apart, and that was over 8,000 pesos.
They call it phenolic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we spent another 8,000 on steel. Part of that is for the front fence to negate the shipping charge, because the low-cost steel guy is quite a ways away.
Yeah.
We are going to build a bed out of that, and we ordered steel for the front fence.
That's right.
Because we are not going to do a full concrete height wall there. We want some eyes on the property.
Right.
And then the other kicker was that this week we included bonuses that we paid partially last year.
Yeah.
We didn't want the guys to think it was a bonus. We knew that some of them were going to ask for advance payment, please, Mom.
Yeah.
And so part of that was a hook to get them to come back. And then what we did was we just bonused out the guys.
We just gave it away.
We just rounded it out and bonused it out to the guys.
Yeah.
So that came out to 28,000. But that included bonuses. So you got to back out and realize that it was only about 12,000 pesos in wages. So as Lynn mentioned, the 214,000, that amounts to about $4,300 US and about $5,300 Canadian.
Right.
Okay, so when we start talking our own currency, we realize how little money this really is. The bigger costs in all of this, of course, are the steel, which they want Western money for it, guys. I don't care where in the world. It's just like an iPhone. iPhone doesn't care where you are in the world. We're going to charge you the same price everywhere. And as we found out, if it's a poorer country, those devices are actually more expensive than a Western country.
That's right.
Because it's considered oligarch money. And the oligarchs are going to charge oligarchs more money. And as mentioned in one of our other videos, the middle income of the Philippines is dramatically risen in just the 11 years that I've been going back and forth, almost 12 now. So, okay, that kind of rounds it out, guys. So we're into this for about 350,000 pesos so far. It's about a third of our budget. However, the electrical connection has to include for the garage, and we have spent a fair amount of money on the garage. And I'm going to do a summary on what it cost us to build this CR, because wow, when you compare it to the AAC block, my goodness, the labor component is through the roof.
And the time.
And the time.
Yeah.
That's the other kicker here.
Yeah.
Time, does it have a value?
Of course.
It does to us. So.
Yeah.
So there we go. Now remember, guys, when I'm doing these numbers, they're all based on threshold numbers. We're not talking about these highs upon highs that the US dollar is creating right now.
Yeah.
It's been pretty flatlined at 59 for about 2 to 3 weeks now.
That's right.
The Canadian is falling a little bit, which is to be expected. The New Zealand, you guys are tanking. I'm not sure why you're not matching up with the Australian and the Great British Pound and the Euro, which are all sitting very close to their thresholds. Just a little above or just a little below. Okay, if you like what you're seeing, guys, please subscribe.
Comment and like.
Salamat.
Thank you.
Later, Gators.